Thank you once again. It's a pleasure to see all of you. Still part of housekeeping, we want to remind all those who could be logged in but didn't register. It is important that you register through that link. That helps us as facilitators to track how many participants that we are dealing with. Also to ask us to, if we can, alongside our names, put probably the country. That will also help us to in discussing and knowing who we are engaging with. Otherwise, I'm happy to take us through the introduction. This is basically the opening session of the training. And then subsequently, we are going to have remarks from a couple of people as the program starts. Wherever you are, we'll ask you to pray and whatever faith you believe in, we trust that God hears our prayers and answers our prayers. So this is a Games Africa Rcmrd online training workshop, and it's focused basically on wetland vulnerability analysis using GIS and Earth observation data. In your Google Classroom, you will receive the concept note to this training, and there are a couple of assumptions that we have made. That people have or participants have at least basic understanding of GIS and remote sensing, among other things. The training builds on the Wetlands Vulnerability Analysis Project implemented under the Games and Africa program, supported by the African Union and implemented by the Regional Center for Mapping of Resources for Development. The assessment was achieved by using improved Earth observation datasets and improving the methodology that deploys GIS modeling and analysis. Wetlands vulnerability analysis aim to really enhance the wetlands monitoring and assessment using geospatial tools and Earth observation datasets. As the training goes on, some of these will be unveiled to the participants. Some of the state-of-art data sets and tools that have been developed to really equip us and empower us to be able to do analysis, especially in the wetland subsector. But of course, these tools can be used across other natural resources. For example, last week, there was a training on the same, but it dwelt and focused more on land. So the Games program, this will be also in the remarks of the team at GMES and Rcmrd and Makere and ESIPS International. So they will talk more about this program. But this is a co-financed program by the European Union and the African Union. And the intent really is to address the growing needs of African countries to access and use of Earth observation, because there's a lot you can do, that we can do, that we need to harness this capability that is available, and really to achieve sustainable growth across the continent. So ESIPS International, this is a private firm, together with implementing partners, that's Rcmrd. There will be remarks from them as well. And the Department of Geomatics and Land Administration at Makere University are the hosts for this 4 days training. For stakeholders from all project implementing countries and those interested globally. We have participants from India, we have participants from Pakistan, and of course across the Africa continent. And it will be running for 4 days, basically from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Every day. The training will be a forum to disseminate some of the outputs and discuss methods developed and sharing experiences to the end users to achieve the Games and Africa Union objectives of really capacity building, use and development of Earth observation application. And of course, given the current challenges, challenge of the global pandemic of COVID, would have loved that this would be physical, but because of that, we have had to have this training online. So the objective is two-pronged. One, empower participants with the skills to use Earth observation data and tools in assessing wetland vulnerability. And secondly, equip participants with knowledge and skills of wetland vulnerability assessment tools and products in monitoring and assessing wetland vulnerability assessment. So we have run sort of a survey to gauge the expectations of the participants, and we hope that by the end of this training, would be able to have achieved these two objectives. Once we get them achieved, I think we'll count ourselves as facilitators, but also as participants, having had a successful training. The expected learning outcomes, we hope that once you go through this 4 days training, and of course we are counting on your dedication and commitment to the training, you'll be able to apply Earth observation tools and data in wetland vulnerability monitoring and assessment. You'll be able to visualize and interpret outputs of wetland vulnerability assessment, use wetland vulnerability assessment tool in wetland monitoring and assessment, especially for decision makers and people who are in position of influence as such. The outline, this is in the program, but I'll quickly run through it. One will have an introduction to wetlands as an ecosystem and vulnerability assessment and analysis. I will also introduce you to Earth observation data for wetland assessments and collection tool. We'll have a session on stakeholder composition and steps of wetland vulnerability assessment, Earth observation data sources and processing for the same. We'll point you to where these data sets are, how you can access them, and we'll be able to share with you the links to the same. We'll take you through wetland vulnerability analysis tool development concept as a concept, and then configuring and using wetland vulnerability assessment tool. This is a desktop application, and accessing and using wetland vulnerability assessment analysis tool as a web application. We have shared the program with all of us, and it's at this point that I would like to now sort of formally turn the training, or having the formal really opening session for this training, and having gone through really a quick look at what we expect. And so I will not go so much into the program, but just to emphasize that it's a 4 days training running from 2 to 5 p.m. Of course, we'll be registering participation. We hope to award a certificate of participation. And so the key word there is participation. And we'll have a mechanism of grading participation. And this will be an e-certificate that will be sent to the emails of all participants who would have successfully attended the training. And so without much ado, I'll bring my presentation to stop and then focus on the official opening of the session. I thank you for listening. So in our midst, there are persons who are in charge of this program. And this is, of course, from the implementing partners, but then all the way to the African Union. And the last I checked that I think about almost all of them were present on the platform. And so at this point, I would like to take the opportunity to invite Dr. Jane Bemigisha. She's the Executive Director of ESIPS International. ESIPS International is a private continental firm that works and deals in environment surveys and spatial tools. And they are part of the implementing partners and consultants in this particular program. So Dr. Jane, over to you. We shall unmute your microphone and you're welcome to make your remarks to the audience. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Jane, we can see you and you've also been unmuted, so please proceed. Thank you.
I'm very gratified to meet you participants and everyone. And first, I would like to recognize the participation of the African Union Commission from the Global Monitoring of Environment and Security Program of Africa, who are the apex institution that is spearheading the program under which we are training today. I would like to recognize the presence of Rcmrd. I hope Mr. Degelo Sendapo is with us. He's our leader at Rcmrd from ESIPS, who are implementing the vulnerability assessment. I would like to thank Makerere University, Professor Anthony Gidudu. I hope he's here. I recognize your presence, Prof, and I also welcome you to this session. I would like to welcome ESIPS International
School of Forestry.
It was a lockdown situation, but we managed to put together the methodology and a tool to analyze and estimate threats to the wetlands. In the Eastern Africa region, we took 10 countries, as my colleague has intimated. And this assessment was a step to equip the region with a knowledge to manage better the threats that we identify. Therefore, you as participants, as you come aboard, it is that we build your capacity for the use. I see that over now 600 participants have registered, although we have fewer here right now. I think more will come. And these participants who have registered are showing us that the threats that we have on wetlands are really appreciated. I would like to appreciate your interest and to thank you so much for recognizing this issue of wetlands degradation and reduction in area. Globally, the Ramsar Convention, which is the global body that is responsible for policy formulations for wetlands management, has recognized or has assessed and found out that
so she sends me the presentation.
In the 20th century, globally, the wetlands declined at about 70%. And this could be really much more in different countries. Not to mention my country. And my country is Uganda. And I would like to see that on this note, the African Union has become so proactive to realize that this should be one of the issues that should be solved in their program. This tool is now tested in Eastern African region, but we look forward to see it tested globally and used, and that the outcomes will be visible. And therefore, you participants who have come today, you are our ambassadors. You are our ambassadors to see that there is sustainability of what was developed as small, and the sustainability is through the capacity that you will that will be built and awareness, and that you will take it forward in terms of development, in terms of awareness, and in terms of use, especially to be sure that it will be useful to the different countries that are facing wetlands decline and degradation. I would right now take the opportunity just to thank the African Union and GMS and Africa program particularly for supporting the private sector. Bringing the private sector on board has been a very, I could say, a transformative move to see that we contribute to capacity, but also we work with institutions that are specialized in different areas of Earth observation applications, and institutions that we are working now, like you will see, is Makerere University, who is the academia part of the consortia that is training, that is building capacity in the region and now beyond. And this is really, really important for a small company like ASIPS to participate. We also now would like to thank Rcmrd for bringing on board a small company to work with them at their level to assess and solve problems, of course, using Earth observation. Then, as I have said again, working with Makerere University, we have bigger dreams. You will be involved perhaps in the near future in what we would like to say or to program as a curriculum and research development aspects of this tool to see that it is further developed, it is utilized, but it is also useful to academia. And we know that through academia, research, and education, it's where sustainability and the future will lie for this tool. I would also now like to outline my colleagues who worked tirelessly to build this tool. And some are here and some are not. And the first one is Professor Musinguzi, who has been the technical team leader. Then we have also Paul Mafabi, the late, who unfortunately passed away on the way. And this was the senior wetlands management policy scientist. And then we had also Alan Mazime, who is still with us now, the application development specialist. He will have a presentation shortly. Then we also worked with Tinebeb Johannes, the wetlands and water spatial analyst, handling also stakeholders analysis or engagement. Then we had Henry Massa, whom you have already met here, and he's the environmentalist at ASIPS and the GIS specialist. Then Thomas Enuru, a spatial data analyst, you will meet him during the training, as well as Raphael Wangara, who is the spatial ecologist and training specialist who organized the training material and organized the previous training, and we are now using the same way he organized from the beginning. We have the assistants our special analyst assistants, Kennedy Adrico, Ismail, Beatrice Chasimile, and also Hans Max and Tam. So this is a group, if you notice, it is a really group that is interdisciplinary and very, very focused, that we are still with them on board. Reading their names and their specializations is an issue that when you take this tool up, you may not just work alone to utilize it. You may want to create your groups or your teams. It is a teamwork. It's not one person work. Then out of the specializations I have outlined is the stakeholder engagement. Without stakeholder buy-in, without stakeholder involvement, it is difficult to implement, even when you have very good assessments on the table. Therefore, dear participants, I appeal to you that when you go back to utilize this tool, don't sit on your desk and analyze and think that you have done a very good job. The better job is to involve the stakeholders and to work with them to get the outputs, and also make sure that you work with them to see that the outputs are implemented in a way that they were meant. And in that way, we will succeed. We will succeed. I would like to end here and thank everyone for attending and wishing you a great session that is coming right now, but also in the 4 days. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jane Bemigisha, for those remarks. And without much ado, because we are trying to manage time, I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Dr. Anthony Kidudu, the representative of Makerere University, to give us his remarks. In fact, the university is the one hosting this training at this particular time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and a very good afternoon to you all. Bonjour tout le monde, habari yenu, sawubona. Nice meeting you all, and thank you for being part of this training. As you have heard, I'm called Anthony Gidudu, and I am an associate professor in the Department of Geomatics and Land Management at Makerere University, and we are privileged to be coordinating this training. As you have heard, we all know we are in a pandemic, and a couple of things have come to mind. We all have been affected or infected by this pandemic in various ways, and we thank God for bringing us this far. One of the lessons that I have personally learned from this pandemic is the importance of lungs. And when Jen mentioned that we have lost around 70% of our wetlands, I was reminded of the analogy that people have made about wetlands, that wetlands are the lungs of the earth. And from the pandemic, we also know that if your lungs have deteriorated by 70%, your chances, you are inching towards a dangerous level, and your chances of survival will actually diminish. And linking this to wetlands, it also brings to mind how precarious the situation is if we do not curb this deterioration of wetlands. And so this training is enabling us harness the potential of geospatial techniques for us to make an input in the preservation of wetlands. And I would like to thank ESIPS for the great work they have done in developing this content. Ordinarily, we would have been doing this training face-to-face, but in the circumstances, we now are in a situation where we have to do online training. And so we're exploring new spaces. There are going to be new challenges. We're going to have new mistakes, but hopefully we shall learn from them day by day and get to a point where we're able to appropriate this technology appropriately. obviously, if we had done this training face to face, we probably would have been training around 30 people. But thanks, I think, as they say, the silver lining to this pandemic is to explore these new spaces. And we're now able to reach out to, according to my records, we're almost hitting 300. That is something we wouldn't have been able to do face to face. And so we are really grateful for this opportunity for you to be here. We are grateful to SIPS International for developing this content. We're also grateful to Rcmrd for the support and for incorporating private stakeholders in this training or developing this content. And of course, GMES and Africa, coordinated by the African Union, we are truly grateful for your support. We're also grateful for the general support by the European Union, and we are trusting that this knowledge will take us steps further. I don't want to take a lot of our time. At this juncture, would like to invite I always call him my senior brother, Mr. Degelo Sendaba from Rcmrd, Regional Center for Mapping of Resources, to give his opening remarks. And from there, we shall hopefully get some representation from the African Union. So thank you very much. And moderator, kindly unmute Mr. Degelo so that we can get his opening remarks. Thank you very much, and have a great training.
And distinguished guests, as well as trainees from different parts of the world, not only the continent. Welcome to this training. And first of all, I would like to congratulate Makerere University and the SIPS for their active role played to facilitate for this training. And also, I would like to congratulate all of you, as well as African Union. Mr. Meshak is from African Union, who will officially open the training program. So Rcmrd has been working as a regional implementing organization of GMS and Africa for Eastern Africa, covering most parts of the IGAD region plus the Indian Ocean Islands. So we had many successive trainings on different application areas and also tools developed, as well as others like training even decision makers or policy makers as a high level government officials. This will be very helpful, the one which we are going to attend it in the coming 4 days will be very helpful for the technical staff. When I'm saying technical staff, it's not only for the ones who run the software or something like that. All technical staff who will provide relevant information for planners, decision makers, as well as local users of that technology. In the future, we will have also more trainings. We are working on those ones. Hope we'll upload and launch the programs, and you will follow and attend. So this will be a good opportunity also to thank African Union, GMS and Africa program, as well as African Space Science Agency, who has been playing an important role for the use of Earth observation and geoinformation. So without their contribution, we couldn't be able to work on these training programs. And again, finally, I would like to pass cards from my Director General, Dr. Emmanuel Kunziza, Rcmrd's Director General, who couldn't make it now. So now I would like to advise you all to attend thoroughly this training for the betterment of the African environment, especially the wetlands, which are badly affected throughout the continent, especially in Eastern Africa, to protect and also to manage them properly. Thank you all, and I would like to invite Mr. Meshak from African Union for the official opening.
Good afternoon. Just to confirm if I have feedback from your side, I hope my microphone is okay. Ato Degelo, thank you so much for passing on the baton to me, and I really appreciate what has been happening at Rcmrd, collaboration with Makerere University and the private sector regarding the training. So my name is Mesha Kenywa from African Union, GMS in Africa. I lead the training component of the GMS in Africa and also contribute to the African Space Program. I have a small presentation to make, but I would like to first of all acknowledge Dr. Jane Bemegisha for leading this initiative of the training as the private sector. And I also like to acknowledge Dr. Jidudu Anthony, who has been instrumental in terms of training and coordination of training activities via Makerere University. Ato Degelo, you have been so efficient in terms of coordinating all the activities of GMS in Africa, led by Rcmrd, and we are happy to know that all the stakeholders are well engaged, and this training is just an indication of a lot of things that are happening under your leadership. Regards to Dr. Emmanuel Nkurunziza, who has been a key leader in this component, and I know that he's not around because of so many other engagements, but we acknowledge him and we also want to pass that appreciation. I'm not just coming here, but I have mandate also from Dr. Tidiane Ouattara, who is the space expert at the African Union level and the coordinator overall of GMS in Africa. So I would like to pass his appreciation regarding what is happening around the training component and other development of services in the GMS in Africa program. So if the host allows, I would just go over a few items regarding the training component and to show you where we are coming from, because we have so many participants today who are probably not familiar with GMS in Africa and AUC as a whole. So what happened is that there is an agenda called Agenda 2063 that was formulated by the African heads of state and government, and it was a 50-year initiative back in 2013, projecting up to 2063 on where they would want to be within those 50 years. And it happened at a time that the AU was celebrating the Golden Jubilee. And from that, we have 7 aspirations within the Agenda 2063. And mapping out all those aspirations, we find that space is a key driver of that agenda. And subsequently, the AU heads of state and government identified the African Outer Space Program as a flagship for implementation of this agenda. And this just shows a few objectives where space can cover, but we have a lot more that space addresses more than this. And you bear witness with me that also in the global level, the SDGs, they have been acknowledged that at least all of them, the 17 goals, can be addressed and can derive their services from space. And this is an encouraging thing, because we are not only doing space as a technological advancement or any other endeavor, but we are doing it because it has some socioeconomic benefit. And as we are going to see from this training, space is also applied in wetland management and other natural resource management. So when we did that, we came up with GMS in Africa as one of the implementation leg of the African Outer Space Program. The African Outer Space Flagship addresses four main areas, which we call the domains of space. It's Earth observation, it's satellite communication, navigation and positioning, and astronomy and space sciences. Under Earth observation, we have the implementation of GMS in Africa as one of the important projects that is helping us to gather the data and to gather a lot of information on how best can we come up, with the continental Earth observation program. So under GMSN Africa, we have again 4 pillars. One of them is training, but we have development of services like Rcmrd. Is one of the 12 consortia over the continent that is leading in the development of services in wetland management and 2 other applications. So we came up with a training program. Well, first of all, we had to develop a training strategy. And the training strategy contains several principles that cut across the various needs that we have in the continent. And one of them that we wanted to introduce is actually to have both online classroom and on-the-job trainings. And online training has become very vital in this era of COVID situation. And this is just an indication that what we are attending now is an online platform. We couldn't gather 270 or 280 people in a classroom as we are doing through this Zoom platform. So it has helped us to expand more, and it has helped us to reach out to the masses. Well, the training through academic institution is one of the areas that we have explored. And again, it's demonstrated here by the interaction between Rcmrd and the Makerere University. And I have to say that this is one of, I think, one of the champions that we have over the 12 consortia. Rcmrd has been a champion in terms of engaging the academic institutions to offer the trainings. And Makerere University, kudos to you. You are doing a lot, and we acknowledge that and we appreciate. And we hope more to be done in order to invigorate this kind of partnership. The other thing is that we wanted to have integration of ICT with EO. Well, we have done some work here, but we still need to do more in terms of integrating the cloud computing component within the Earth observation. Initially, the EO sector used to be a standalone platform, but we want to integrate other emerging technologies in order, to make better use of the data and to infer more information from there. So those are just some of the principles that we identified. We have to acknowledge also that, this triangular interaction between academia, private sector, and the consortia themselves is teaching us a lot, and we have learned a lot of lessons for the next phase and for the next or the future programs that we will implement in Earth observation. We have actually noticed that, academia is a very good platform to reach out to the masses. And when it comes to sustainability of training programs, academia is one of the most useful institution because it's always in the business of training, and domiciling trainings through academia is helping a lot. But also bringing the private sector through that component is helping us to add value to services and to discover more than we used to think within the confines of EO, because the private sector is going beyond EO, integrating other technologies and tools. And we have seen this interaction not only with Rcmrd and SCIPs and other private sector, but also in the north, in the south of the continent, in the west and the east all together. And we're going to document, all these lessons learned so that we can inform the future programs. Well, what happened is that we started with gathering needs from all the 12 consortia. The 12 consortia are leading a network of about 120 other institutions. I think each of the consortia has about a minimum of 7 or 10 institutions, including academia and private sector. So all of these were consulted on the training needs, and we gathered all of them in a table. You just see a sample here, but we have more than this. So what happened is that when we received all these training needs, we categorize them into courses, into different courses that we can identify. Those that have to be merged were merged, and we came up with all these that you see in the graph below. And this formed our catalog that then would inform us on how to continue with the implementation of the strategy. So we retreated and said, okay, we have to divide roles between academia. We have to divide roles between especially the African Union Commission at the continental level. We have to also divide some roles within the regional level led by consortia. And this is where, we have realized a lot of dynamics, because allowing the institutions like Rcmrd to coordinate trainings at the regional level they have addressed their real needs that might not be required in the other wider continent. So we came up with this training plan to implement the training strategy and the training catalog, and we divided into the 4 pillars of GMS in Africa, which is data and infrastructure, we have services development, we have communication and engagement, and we have management courses. Most of the management courses have been taken by AUC and other, and also consortia at their level. They have been doing a lot at their level in terms of management of grants. Communication of EO is not as simple as other types of communication, because you have to interpret the information and then you deliver that information. And then so we have been able to do several trainings on service communication, but more needs to be done in order to educate the wider communities. Service development, and this is where most of the consortia have been doing a lot of work, tailoring all their specific needs to the training. And at this continental level, we only took that which was cutting across, and we ourselves together with UMETSAT, JRC, and European Space Agency, we have been doing offering this at the continental level. But most of the work, to say the truth, has been done by the consortia like Rcmrd and the 11 others. And this is where we have realized a lot of dynamics and achievements. So we have achieved a lot. This is just a capture of what we have done so far. Within a period of 3 years, we have been able to, we mapped out the existing capacity on the continent that has been impacted through other preceding programs like MESA, MESA. We used to have another program called MSD, and we used to have PUMA. All these have derived a lot of capacity of the continent, but we need to document that, and we did that mapping of the existence. Then we have done a lot of trainings together with consortia themselves, together with our assisting partners like JRC, UMETSAT, and we have realized about 3,000 trainings so far. People have been trained widely, and we have also developed a network of universities. This is an active network of universities that is operational, and it's leading in. We have some working groups defined under this network, and we seek to continue engaging this network in the future in terms of reaching out to the wider masses of not only students but other people within the university network. We have a virtual networking platform that universities can interact. And more than that, we have established a digital learning platform that has helped us a lot in terms of reaching and documenting courses. We have over 100 courses so far with approximately 700 users registered within the digital platform. And we have offered over 40 master's and PhD scholarships that have been supporting the development of services. And Rcmrd has issued some scholarships as well. So yeah, this is just a pictorial view of what we have achieved, the strategy, the workshops that have been done, the database of existing capacities in the continent, and many others that have been achieved so far. So we really remain grateful to Rcmrd, to this consortium, and other consortia that are still leading the training aspect. And we are sure that with this kind of development, we will reach out to we will reach the targets of the Agenda 2063, which clearly calls for a revolution of skills in the technical areas, both software and hardware. And we also reach also the targets of the African space strategy, which calls for critical mass of people or scientists that can support the African space program. So I want to thank you, and I want to appreciate you for your patience.
And that marks, of course, I expected Mr. Meshach to sort of declare the training officially opened, but I believe that his remarks had the very intention to declare that this training is now officially open and launched. And so, of course, virtually, members and participants, please, you give a hand clap to everyone, and would like to assure you of the commitment of the AU, as already alluded, commitment of Rcmrd, and the partners like Makerere University and ESIPS International are representing the private sector in this program. So, ladies and gentlemen, now we will now go into the technical bit, or sort of to say the actual training commencing. I would like to invite, I know Mr. Degel is quite busy, Meshach is quite busy, Dr. Gidudu and Dr. Jane, but we would want to invite you to stay in and at least participate in this opening session, first session that will take us through the introduction on wetlands. And with this, I would like to invite Mrs. Tinebeb Johannes, all the way from Ethiopia, to take the floor and take us through the next session. Otherwise, thank you all for sticking here. Our numbers have been constant, and that is a good indication that people are attentive wherever they are. They are listening and taking notes, and we know that we'll definitely achieve our objectives for this particular training. We have posted, Tinebeb has posted a couple of questions. The chats are open, so please, I like it. People are posting their names and their institutions and countries. I think that is good. So please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat platform. But importantly, there are 4 broad areas that we would like to discuss towards the end of this session that Tinebeb will handle. So she has posted these questions, broad questions and category and areas for reflection. We know we are dealing with a multifaceted and diverse expertise of participants. And so we'll cluster you at some point. And this is an engaging training. It's a participatory, and it's not one person sitting one side and talking to the class. So we'll try to make it as participatory as possible, as much as the tools and the gadgets allow us to do so. So please follow the chats as well as you attend and listen to the talking and the discussions. Thank you. So over to you, Tinebeb.
Welcome to this webinar, successive training on wetland. I would go through a number of presentations that are highlighting about what we have done in terms of wetland vulnerability analysis. The first day, which is more or less talking about a highlight or an introduction sections of wetland ecosystem, stakeholder, and some brief notes about Earth observation. But my colleagues will go through deep dive from tomorrow onward, is what we have done on the tool and what we have done on the methodology, also expert and stakeholder involvement. These are the first presentation, Introduction to Wetland Ecosystem. I already have highlighted my name a little bit, and my name is Tinebeb Johannes. I am from Ethiopia. First, for the sake of internet bandwidth, I will make my video off. I can see that there is a little bit problem on the display. So, yeah. All right, the first day, we will first go to the topics and final discussion titles. Okay. Yeah, the schedule of day 1 would be first, I will go through introduction of wetland ecosystem, and it will be followed by a healthy break, which is taking 5 minutes. And then successively, I will go through 2 PowerPoint presentations. The first one and the second will be stakeholder composition and analysis. And then the third presentation will be application of Earth observation data, emphasis on wetland vulnerability assessment. And then at the end, we will have a panel discussion, which takes about, we believe we will get time to discuss a panel in about 40 minutes. And the last one with the question and answer, it takes 20 minutes. Yeah, title of the panel discussions, I've tried to post it on chat in here in today's Zoom platform, and also in Telegram groups. If you could find the text, I would like to think of, whilst I go through the presentations, I would like you to think to these three topics. The first one is state of wetland in your country and major causes of degradation. And then the second one is what initiatives are being put in place. And then the third one would be what are your recommendations. I would like to ask a volunteer who would like to present these three main topics, one for each country. And we will expect at least 6 speakers in the panel discussion to talk about these three main topics that we are listed here. So our facilitator will go through when we do the panel discussions. But before we do that, I would like you all to think of these three main topics that you will be presenting in the panel discussions. And then I will directly go to the presentations. What are wetlands? So wetlands are, it is defined as any land area that is saturated or flooded within water. It is either be seasonally or permanently. They can either be inland, such as lakes, aquifers, marshes, or coastals, or mangroves, estuaries, and coral reefs. And then another definition of wetland could be an area where water is primarily factor controlling the environment and associated plant and animal life. They occur where the table is at or near the surface of the land, or where the land is covered by water. So in many of the wetland definition, it's always debatable to get a straightforward definition of wetlands. But then all of ecologists or all of stakeholders working on wetlands have three main components to integrate in wetland definition. The first one is wetland should be distinguished by predominant presence and dynamics of water. It's either be at the surface or within the root zone. The second it could be have a unique soil or sediment conditions that are different from adjacent non-wetland areas. The third, the main component is it has to support vegetation and animals specifically adapted to permanently or seasonal wet conditions. So, as I have identified, the wetland definition varies from each countries or from country to country. There is a Ramsar Convention of wetland definition. For those of you who are not familiar about Ramsar Convention, it is a convention of wetland that are signed in 1971 in an Iranian city of Ramsar. It is currently, it is a convention of wetland. It is intergovernmental or treaty that provides the framework for national and international cooperation and wide use of wetland and their resources. Currently, there are about 171 countries that are contracting bodies or countries. And then there are about 2,400 wetlands that are registered as importance of a wetland. Among these, about 42 are found in India. And one of the famous wetlands that are found in IGAD region or Eastern Africa is the Sud wetland that is found in South Sudan. So in Ramsar Convention, we see that wetlands are defined as area of marsh, fen, peatland, or water, whether natural or artificial. It could be permanent or temporary, with water that is static or flowing, fresh, brackish, or salt, including areas of marine water in the depth of which at low tide does not exceed 6 meters. If you would like to have more information about Ramsar, the link is provided here. So the next one is, apologies. You cannot see the title because there is the Zoom have, sorry about that. The next one, I will talk more on the wetland ecosystem. what is a wetland ecosystem? It's an ecosystem of a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as their physical environment, interact, forming an interconnected system. It also contains biotic or living parts, as well as abiotic factors or non-living parts. As an ecosystem, it's characterized also by waterlogged conditions, either permanently or seasonally. It also has a factor that distinguishes wetlands from other landforms or water bodies in the characteristic vegetation of aquatic plants adapted to the unique hydric soil. So the soil could be, as we mentioned in the wetland definition of three main components in the previous slides, it should be a unique soil type, which is hydric soil, and waterlogged conditions. Yeah. In this, of course, wetlands are a complex ecosystem. And in this diagram, we try to basically show the interaction between plants and animals, or on terrestrial bodies, which is found here, or aquatic bodies, which is found in this system. And then this overall entire diagram shows an interaction of ecosystem in each plants, animals, and then these two kinds of systems in the Earth's planet. So graphically, we would like to see wetland ecosystem into three main components. The first one is terrestrial system, and then the second one is a wetland system, and the third one is deep water aquatic system. Under terrestrial system, we could see the hydrology part, which is usually dry, and then on the wetland system, which is intermittently to permanently flooded, and then on deep aquifer water system, it is going to be permanently flooded. And then the second category, we could see that on terrestrial system, we see biogeochemical role, which is only the source. And then on the wetland system, the source, sink, or transformer will be integrated. But then when it comes to deep water aquatic system, it's going to be only a sink. And when we look on productivity side, we see that the under terrestrial system, the productivity will be low to medium. And when under wetland system, it's generally high, but sometimes it could happen that it could be low. And then in deep water aquatic system, it's generally low. When we see on wetland system, especially on productivity, it is generally high. So people's attention have been more attracted to wetland when it comes to, especially for developing countries who are more generating income on agriculture. So that's why we are it's thanks to the African Union that the wetland is now currently attracts a lot of attentions, and that's within this. That's why we are integrating Earth observation data set to look more on wetland areas. So first, we go to what are the types of wetlands. In our category, we try to see there are 4 types of wetlands. The first one is a marshes, as you could see in the picture of marsh under text of marsh. And then the second one is swamps, where we could see water bodies, which is more of water, and then it's surrounding by terrestrial bodies of grasses. And then the box in the third category, where you could see more of soil. It looks like agricultural areas that are more of rice has been grown here. And then the fence, where you could see fence integrated also with water. But then it's not limited only with this type. As the definition of wetland, even the classification is different. Under Ramsar condition, this is internationally conventions that are classified wetland in the categories of 5 major wetland type, which is also mostly followed by most countries. The first one is marine, which integrates coastal wetlands, which includes coastal lagoons, rocky shores, seagrass beds, and coral reefs. The second one is estuarine, which includes deltas, tidal marshes, mudflats, and mangrove swamps. The third category under Ramsar system of wetland classification is lacustrine, which is wetlands associated with lakes. And then riverine, which is also wetlands along rivers and streams. The last one, which is called palustrine, which is the meaning is marshy. It integrates marshes, swamps, and bogs. So here, as Ramsar conventions, back in 1996, there was a wetland classification made in East Africa, agreed also in regional wetland biodiversity, which is made in Uganda. So the classification is basically similar to Ramsar Convention classification. It's also classified under 5. But then there is another category which is integrated here. I will not go through all the details of the wetland type, but then I will first talk to the classification. The first one is marine. It has two categories, which is subtidal and intertidal. And as you could see in the left corner, the types of wetlands that are integrated into each subcategories. The second one is estuarine. It has also a category of subtidal and intertidal. And then in the right, you'll see what type of wetlands are integrated. The third one, which is sodic and or saline water, it has also a subcategory of lacustrine and palustrine. And then it also has second subcategory, which is also permanent, temporary. And then you could see some wetlands are seasonal. We have seen that in the definition of wetland, but then some of them are permanent. So in the Eastern African classification of wetland, they try to classify according to the seasonal types. That's why it's coming to permanent and temporary. And then the fourth category here is the freshwater, includes the first as a subcategory is riverine, which has also a permanent and temporary, lacustrine, which has also a permanent and temporary, and then the third one is palustrine, which has herbaceous and woody. So what is different from Ramsar Convention wetland classification is here the main difference is the man-made wetlands, which is adjusted here as a man-made wetland. There are quite few subcategories under man-made wetlands. The first one is aquaculture or marine culture, which includes fish ponds, prawn farms. And then in agriculture, it has also includes farm ponds and dams, irrigated lands, rice path channels, canals, and ditches. And then under salt production, it has also a category of salt evaporation ponds. Under man-made wetlands, there is also a category which is a wetland that is found in urban or industrial areas, which has a category of borrow pits, brick pits, mining holes, road impoundments, and quarries. And then the last category under man-made wetland is water storage, which divides into two subcategories, which is wastewater treatment facilities, ponds, dams, and reservoirs. So how wetlands work? Basically, in this diagram, we have tried to definitely have an important, we have tried to figure out wetlands have definitely has an important play to ecosystem. So this diagram shows the way wetlands are formed. It is largely through impeded drainage, which you could see from here figure, goes from which goes from inflows, both groundwater flows and outflows, which releases finally into streams. This has also a contribution to the atmosphere in providing rainfall. So, why are we looking on wetlands? Wetlands have a numerous importance for our ecosystem. We have tried to list, but this is not limited to the importance of wetland that are shown here. The first and foremost is it's a water storage, which are beneficial to all the stakeholders and the economists, the stakeholders and all people that are interested on wetland. And then the second one is it provides a habitat to flora and fauna, which is also an attraction to recreation and also for pleasures. And it was also another benefit when it comes to storm protection and flood mitigation. It is in terms of flood mitigations, wetlands play a great role for mitigating floods and also protecting storms. It's not only flood, also it's used for drought buffering. When we come to drought wetland vulnerability analysis tomorrow, we'll go deep dive in the importance of wetlands when we talk about the methodology that we have been forming for. And then another important is a shoreline stabilization, and also helps us in the erosion control. And it has also an advantage on groundwater recharge as well as discharge. And when we see streams that are flowing into outflows, it has also helped to water purification, since water is going on the outflows and there are some remaining under drainage. So it will also have a good benefit for water purification. And then there is retention of nutrients, sediments, and pollutants. The last but not least is establishment of local climate conditions, particularly rainfall and temperature. So graphically, we tried to categorize the importance of wetlands into these main categories. The first one is a process, which includes physical, biological, and chemical. And then the ecosystem structure, which includes geomorphology, hydrology, soils, flora, and fauna. These two has integrated into wetland conditions, which is talking more on hydrological, biogeochemical, and ecological. Again, this has been dispersed into two main categories: under service and good and products. Under service, we've seen that there is a flood control, water quality, food chain support. And under goods and products, there is plants, birds, and fish. And then the last category is to know the importance under ecology, which has an impact on environmental service webs, and then economic products webs, which is mostly integrate in the importance of wetland. So, as we see the importance of wetland, there are numerous importance. But how about the threats that are currently facing? Dr. Jane have already mentioned that 70% of wetland has already, under Ramsar Convention, it's already integrated into a trait of wetland that is currently happening in our wetland system. So what is the traits that are currently happening? We have tried to list out at least the main traits that are integrated into wetland, but this is also not limited to the traits that are facing the current wetland system. Because despite their importance, they are being modified or reclaimed, and often driven by economic and financial motives that trace to existence of wetland issues. So what the main traits of the wetland is agriculture. When you talk about agriculture, wetlands have often fairly flat areas of rich organic soil that is highly productive agricultural land if drained. And for this reason, many wetlands have been drained and converted to agricultural lands. These are the first traits that has been identified even for all Eastern African regions of 10 IGAD countries. And then the second trait is the mining. The mining is also integrating of wetland, of soils for peats, coal, clay, sand, gravel, minerals, gemstones, phosphate, and other minerals. That has been a major impact on wetlands. The third one is grazing. Overgrazing harms wetlands through soil compaction, removal of vegetation, and stream bank destabilization. Of course, wetland offer some of the best forage for livestock as well as a water source and cover. So livestock tends to spend disproportionately large time in wetlands. So another trait for wetland is a pollution, which is discharge of pesticides, herbicides, nutrients, sediment, toxicants from domestic sewage, agriculture, industries, aquaculture, and livestock. The big trait for current wetland is infrastructure development as well, which integrates floodplain development, often directly impacts wetland by removing vegetation, which also increasing to erosion. And filling of drainage wetlands for building sites of mega infrastructure projects. Example includes dams, roads, power plants, etc. And then finally, the main threat for wetland is a climate change, the global warming, climate change, temperature rise, shifting of rainfall patterns, or distribution of intensity impacts on wetlands. So pictorially, we have tried to list here what are the main traits that are being implemented currently for wetlands. As an example, if you see on the above middle picture, development of infrastructure is removing the wetlands for the purpose of development under the infrastructure. If you see the first picture on the left, you could see a pollution of plastic bottles that are responsibly been fallen on the wetlands. Some other examples has been identified here as an picture. So, what is this slide we have tried to see here? What are the potential solutions to wetland degradations? We have seen that there are also numerous potential solutions that could be easily been figured out, but then we see that these 6 or more potential solutions would be more applicable that are facing the wetland currently for our wetland system. The first and foremost is empower communities to safeguard and restore wetlands. We have seen that we will talk more on when we talk about stakeholder engagement, how the communities in the wetland system has a lot of impacts when it comes to wetland. So empowering these communities, we believe that it will be safeguarding and restoring wetlands. And then the second one will be strengthening wetland law enforcement and governance. We trust that decision makers will also play a great role when it comes to wetland importance. So as a potential solutions, strengthening wetland law enforcement, integration of policies will also have a great impact for solution of wetland degradation. The third one is strengthening institutions responsible for wetlands management and conservation. So this is also the third category. If we strengthen institutions, we believe that there will be a change when it comes to the wetland management and conservation. The fourth one is protect and conserve the remaining intact wetlands. It's believed that communities, if they protect and preserve, the wetland will remain intact in the wetlands. So this is also a good component for wetland solutions. The fourth one is rehabilitate and restore degraded wetlands. If there is a potential to rehabilitation of wetlands, there is a huge impact when it comes to restoration of restoration of degraded wetlands. The fifth one, the last one is promote sustainable aquaculture, fisheries, and agriculture. So thank you for your time, and I would like to have to remind you again to go through the titles, the topics that we shared in chats or in Telegram group, the topics that we will have at the end of the presentations, and then we'll have now a 5-minute break a health break. And I will go back to Henry to remind us the time and also to notify us the successive program. Over to you, Henry. Thank you very much. Henry, can you check that you can hear me?
Tinebeb, yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. I hope that you have a pleasant, healthy break, and then we'll directly go through the second presentations of stakeholder roles and engagement. In the first presentation, we have seen that the main players of wetlands are stakeholders, and then whilst we do the vulnerability wetland assessment, we try to approach stakeholders that are currently working in wetland for each 10 Eastern African regions. And then in this presentation, we will slightly talk more on what procedures that we have followed and what outcomes are going to be we have achieved so far. Okay. The presentation includes the first section is the introduction sections, followed by stakeholder mapping, and then it's also followed by stakeholder influence and interests. What are the key findings? And then the fifth session will go into deep dive on the challenges and lesson learned. Yes?
If you could reshare the screen or your presentation.
Oh,
we're still viewing the earlier one.
Oh, sorry. Let me know if will you see the stakeholder roles and engagement PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, we'll let you know.
You're looking. Okay, thanks.
Yes, we can see it. If you can just put it in the presentation mode.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. I was just explaining what steps we have followed since the first presentation. We're talking about the wetlands in general. And then we've seen that the stakeholders play a great role when it comes to wetlands. So while this parallelly doing the wetland vulnerability assessment tool methodologies, in parallel, we have also identified what are the stakeholders that are currently engaged in wetland activities in the 10 Eastern African regions. So in this presentation, we'll talk what are the roles and engagements. So the first section will be an introduction section, and then the second section will also talk about stakeholder mapping, followed by stakeholder influence and interests, and then what are the key findings in terms of stakeholders, and then what were the challenges and lesson learned, and then the final section will talk about more on the recommendations. So in the first, we'll slightly go to what is stakeholder engagement. In each activities, in each ecosystem, there is always stakeholder. And then when it comes to wetlands, there is also stakeholders. It is a process by which any person or group who has an interest or stake in wetland and involved in the related activities and decision making and the implementation process. It goes all the way from the local communities, researchers, and then decision makers. And what are the stakeholders that we considered during making the analysis? Some of them are national wetland management institutions, research institutions with focus on wetland conservation and management in that 10 project countries. Why we get involved? As we explained slightly, to be consulted and get feedback on methodology and prototype for wetland vulnerability. So we map the stakeholders as their relevance. So we first identify the key stakeholders and then relevance to wetland vulnerability assessment. The second step that we did is we categorized all the stakeholders that were identified into 4 major categories. The first one is local community. As we said, that these are the communities that plays a great role for wetlands. Those communities that are found in upstream and downstream village or residents are considered. And then the second one is government institutions. Most of them are national, state, and local governmental organizations. And then under the third one, researchers, which are included, some of them has a Nile Basin Initiative, research centers, and some universities. And then the fourth one is NGOs, which is which involved in wetland conservation program and other humanitarian activities. So we tried to schematically represent in two categories of external stakeholders and researchers. Under external stakeholders, there is governmental organizations and non-governmental organizations, which are NGOs. Under governmental organization, we have seen that there is a local communities, national governments, some of the ministries, which is Animal Resource and Fishery, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Water Resource and Irrigation, Ministry of Environment and Forest are included. These are not limited to each country. Each countries may have a different naming of ministries, and then it could be organized as a general name category under each governmental organization. And then under non-governmental organizations, we have tried to identify wildlife conservation societies, NGOs what are working in wetlands, United Nations environmental programs, and the famous Wetland International. And then under researchers, we have mentioned before, we have integrated Nile Basin initiatives and some of the universities. So when we do the third category, which has who have a great influence and then interest in terms of wetlands, we have tried to categorize these 4 basic categories under an interest based, which is displayed on the y-axis, and then an influence, which is displayed on x-axis. If we try to schematize this, let's say, for example, researchers have seen that there is a less interest for the wetlands because they are more focused on their research. Maybe they would be a university graduate to be able to graduate and more or less try to identify what are the traits or the importance of wetland or bring any analysis as based to when it comes to wetland. But then they will also have a less influence on when it comes to decisions in terms of wetland. This is not meant to mean that they have less influence or less interest, but when we compare to other stakeholders such as NGOs, local communities, or national and local governments, doesn't mean that they have low, but relatively they have lower interest in influence in wetlands. But when we see local communities, which is categorized under C in the top right corner, seeing that local communities has a great interest because they are the one who are facing the wetlands next to their own neighborhood. And then they have also a higher influence since it belongs to them. They have the responsibilities to make sure that the wetland is utilized or it's conserved. So the local community is a great, has a much higher influence in compared to researchers or national, which has parallel to interest when it comes to influence. They have parallel influence when it comes to wetland, that is national and local government. So when we do stakeholder mapping or stakeholder engagement, we have a focal person for each country that we have tried to display here by their name, co-contact, and their institution, and for each country. For example, for Ethiopia, we have an institution of Joe Spatial Information Institute, and then Joe Spatial Information Agency. So we have tried to approach these people, and my colleagues will talk about what methodology we have followed to come up with wetland degradation in a framework called DIPSR. The acronym of DIPSR is driver, pressure, state, impact, and responses. Tomorrow we'll talk more on what approach we have followed when it comes to DIPSR framework. But what we did were previously we formed a questionnaire that integrates these 5 DIPSR framework systems and send all of them virtually to fill all the questionnaires that are integrated in each country. So we received a lot of responses when it comes to each wetland activities that are currently happening for each country. So we are grateful for those people who were very active in helping us to collect all the data sets that are for each country. So what we have identified in their key findings are, we have seen that we also tried to list it in the previous, the local community livelihood is largely dependent on wetland. Thus, they are the key players for wetland conservation. And then we have seen also that NGOs have a higher interest in conservation of wetland, but have less influence on wetland conservation. So the third one is researchers, which have relatively lower interest and influence on the conservation of wetland. Finally, what will happen to the national and local government, we have seen that political power to oversee and handle all intervention related to wetland conservation and management. So in doing so, what were our main challenges and lesson learned were? The challenges what we have been facing is, as we have all said in the previous, the COVID-19 pandemic restricted us to only make virtual meetings with all stakeholders. And then the time that we have been given was very limited when it comes to stakeholders. But we are so grateful in collecting all the data sets that the stakeholders has been providing. And then for lesson learned, we have seen 5 lessons, which is not also limited to this. But the first lesson learned is state of wetland in the African region has been identified. And then variation in capacity for wetland vulnerability analysis across all the Eastern African region has been identified. And then opportunities for accessibility to Earth observation data and tools has been identified, because we have seen what kind of Earth observation data has been currently being utilized for each country. We see that there is also a lot of involvement in using of remote sensing and observable Earth observation data for application of wetland. So we are also grateful to come up with a tool that is currently being applied in each stakeholders or in each institutions that we have developed. So it will not be a start which is going to be very from initial. So we take the advantage of Earth observation data utilization for each country. The fourth one is suitability of DIPSR framework and MCDA framework, which acronym starts from development of multi-criteria decision analysis. And the last lesson learned is limited data, of course, especially for Eritrea, Somalia. We have seen that there were a lot of limited data access, and then the literatures were not actually accessible, but we at least try to integrate these 2 countries in terms of phone calling what's currently happening in terms of wetland. So there were very limited data and literature for wetland vulnerability assessment, especially for those 2 countries. So what are the recommendations that we come up after doing all the stakeholder engagement and analysis where the first one is building capacity for wetland vulnerability assessment is crucial. Then the second one, addressing variation in wetland interventions, is also a milestone to come up with a recommendation of wetland. And then sustainability and positive impact would also be integrated into a recommendation of wetland, which has also a great influence for wetland intervention, wetland response strategies. And then we've seen that if there is a building of a platform, like what we have done as under the tool, will be for continued collaboration, will also has a great impact and is backstopping of wetland degradation. And the last one is integration of geospatial and Earth observation tool has a tremendous advantage. We'll talk in the successive slides how Earth observation has a great advantage in terms of spatial and temporal components. Thank you very much. I will directly go to the last presentation from myself about the Earth observation introduction application to wetland vulnerability assessment. Thank you. Before we go to the presentation, I would like to invite you a video of application, a slide video that were made by European Space Agency about the application of Earth observation. Thank you very much. Let me know when you get to see it. Henry, can you able to see the video?
If you could stop sharing the...
Okay.
Stop sharing the screen, then you play the video. And remember to share the audio as well.
Okay. I was just doing that. Let me know. Okay. Okay. Can you now able to see the first video, the first page of the video?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Share the sound.
Sorry?
Share the sound of the video. Let's see if we can also do it from here.
Can you now hear the video?
So, Tinebeb, you have to go to the Zoom and then share the sound, your computer sound.
Oh, okay.
And so you will, I think, have to rewind.
If you have the video, can you please be able to share?
Yes. If
I think you have it in. Okay. Okay, please.
I don't have the video downloaded, Tinebeb, but if you send me the link, we can stream.
Okay, one moment, please.
Tinebeb,
Yes.
can I take you through the process?
Yes, please.
Okay, just play
I've
the
shared.
video. First,
Okay.
play the video without
One.
sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, now go and share that video, just the screen, like share the page or share the. When on that window for share, do you see two buttons on the lower left corner? There's share sound.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I got it.
Okay, perfect.
Lights are looking down.
Is it okay now?
Yes, Tinebeb.
Thank you, Henry.
High above us, some 800 kilometers above our heads, satellites are looking down at our Earth, collecting information. Information about the land, the oceans, ice, and the atmosphere. Why is this important? It's because we need to understand how the Earth works and to know more about how it's changing. These could be short-term changes like a shift in the weather, or long-term changes affecting our climate. When it comes to monitoring these, the great advantage of a satellite is that it can cover the entire planet and do this again and again on a regular basis. Satellites can collect visual information. They can also collect information that would be hidden to the naked eye. ESA is at the forefront of satellite Earth observation. For example, our Earth Explorer satellites are finding the answers to urgent scientific questions. Questions about the cryosphere, that's the Earth's ice and frozen ground. About gravity. About moisture in the soil. The salinity of our oceans. And about the Earth's magnetic field. ESA's Sentinel satellites support the Copernicus program. Copernicus will help us see the impact of changes in the ozone layer and changes in sea level. Over 30 satellites will provide up-to-date information to help governments respond quickly to disasters and emergencies, to plan our cities, to monitor water demand, to check air quality. Copernicus will help us see the impact of changes in the ozone layer and changes in sea level. ESA also develops meteorological satellites for weather and climate studies, together with the European Organization for the Exploitation of Meteorological Satellites, or EUMETSAT. All this information gathered by our Earth-observing satellites is hugely valuable in advancing science and technology, supporting European industry, and fostering international collaboration, caring for our planet and for the people who live on it. That's at the core of ESA's Earth observation program. And the cost? To run the whole of ESA for a year costs less than the price of one cinema ticket for every European.
Hello. I hope that you have enjoyed the video, and I'll directly go to a slide presentation, which I will make sure that I will make it short, on wetland vulnerability assessment training, which is Introduction to Earth Observation, Data, Products, and Services. The outline of the presentation includes the definition of Earth observation or Earth science, Earth observation data, capture and processes, advantage of Earth observation data, and then the fourth category is characteristics of Earth observation data, major EO data sources, and application of EO data and services. So, what is Earth science? As we all know, it's any of the science, such as geology, meteorology, or oceanography, that deal with the Earth or with one or more of its parts. When it comes to Earth observations, which is integration of one small component of Earth science, it is the science of gathering of information about the planet Earth's physical, chemical, and biological systems via remote sensing technologies. Usually that involves satellite carrying out image devices, as you could see in a short video before beginning of the PowerPoint presentation. So in these schematic presentations, we have tried to see what are the main processes integrated into Earth observations. The main processes are, in summary, we want to see in this diagram how Earth observation data captured in the process. Figure A represents the main source, in this case, the sun. The sun releases or gives out radiation and then interacts with part B, which is the atmosphere. And then in part C, it's also interacting with Earth, where some of the radiation of this energy is absorbed or reflected. On the other hand, the other energy of sources is also from the satellites themselves, which is in part D. The satellites are active satellites that send energy or generate energy. So similar to the sun, it's integrating this energy interaction with the objects of the Earth that's either going to be absorbed or reflected back to the atmosphere. When this energy is reflected, both from the sun or from the satellite, the information in terms of electromagnetic radiation is captured or detected by the sensors of the satellite. So the satellite relays in one part this information to another satellite, or it relays this information back to the receiving station. Within the receiving station, this information has been sent by the satellite, is interpreted as well as analyzed. That's what we're currently doing. The interpretation will be generated could be as a maps or could be as graphs. So the graphs would be more goes to an application, for example, managing natural resources, agriculture responses, activities such as disaster risk management, and the process of capturing data and converting Earth observation data is some of the examples that can be applied in the application sections. So we've seen here why we were using currently Earth observation data, because it is a space-based technology that deliver reliable and repeated coverage of data sets. For example, for Landsat, it started back in 1971 or 72 and released every other 16 days. And the data is reliable without discontinuation, and they have repeated coverage that is freely accessible throughout our Earth. And then the second advantage why we are looking at observation is the ability to collect information over large spatial area. This will characterize natural features or physical objects on the ground. For example, if we see a meteorological stations, we have a station data that is applicable, such as precipitation or temperature. But these are point-based data that is released from each station. The advantage of Earth observation is integration of all the data, which we are going to see in a pixelated form, that is forming each category under grid-based application of spatial component. And then the third Earth observation method that we are trying to see is the advantages to observe surface areas and objects on a systematic basis and monitor their changes over time. We could have seen a time series data that we could be able to integrate from back in 1971, for an example of Landsat, until today, which is 2021. Because easily see where it is reduced and where it is increased when it comes to any kind of natural resources, especially during our analysis. We could see it tomorrow how my colleagues have come up with a tool that integrates wetland vulnerability using Earth observation data. So what are the parameters of Earth observation data? For example, electromagnetic radiation spectrum has been identified. As I have explained in the diagram, the sensors on Earth observation system usually record electromagnetic radiation, and these sensors detect that record in specific wavelengths and releases in electromagnetic spectrum. And when radiation interacts with matter, some of the wavelengths are absorbed and some other are reflected. Thus, it's necessary to understand, for example, how vegetation has reflected, how soils are reflected within the electromagnetic spectrum. So, the main parameters of Earth observation is resolution. What is a resolution? It is the number of pixels that can be displayed on a device, or the area of the ground that a pixel represents in an image file. We have 4 distinct types of resolution: spectral, spatial, radiometric, and temporal. We will not go through all the details of, especially for spectral and radiometric, which takes a lengthy time. But then in the spectral, it is a specific wavelength intervals that a sensor can record. And in a temporal, it is how often a sensor obtains imagery of a particular area, because we are interested on a location-based of a spectral analysis, and then a time-based in a temporal resolution. So these 2 main categories need to be given attention. Here, to see the commonly used observation satellite systems. In the x-axis, a temporal resolution or revisit time, and then in a y-axis, a resolution of spatial resolution, which is 10 meter all the way to 1 meter. If you could see, for example, first I will explain spacecraft math. You could see it goes from 3,000 kilometer to 3 kilometer. And then average data prices is in dollar per kilometer, which is dark blue, all the way to light blue. For example, if we see a Landsat, which is freely accessible, has relatively lower resolution in terms of spatial resolution in 10 meter resolutions, and then relatively a lower temporal resolution, which is in a weekly basis. From weekly, it goes to daily, and then some of them have gone to hourly. But if we could see, for example, on top left corner, which is GOI on top, could see it has a spatial resolution, which is very high, and then a temporal resolution in median term from weekly to daily. Okay. Here we have tried to see what is currently publicly available EO data providers, which is free access to sources. We have seen that the ESA Sentinel products, as you could see in the video in the beginning of the slides, are providing these links. And then the GRC Joint Research Center stations are disseminating also a freely accessible data sets, which can be accessible here. And in the last slide, where the public EO data providers are, which is commercial sources, are displayed here. I would like now to go directly to have a few break and then to have a panel discussions on the last time slot of day one. Thank you very much, and I appreciate all of your attentions. Back to you, Henry.
Thank you, Tinebeb, for those presentations. And a number of our colleagues have been following the questions in the chat room. And so we would like to now open it up a bit. But I think for now, let's take maybe 2 to 5 minutes of a break, and then we come back with our final sort of segment for that day. And this segment, I think when Tinebeb started the presentation, she did post the questions in the chat, but also on the Telegram group. So that's what we'll be going into, and also responding to questions that could have come up in the chat room. Of course, some have already been responded to by the team, but if there's any, please do submit during this short break as we prepare to come back and then have the last session of the day. Otherwise, thanks for your attention and for keeping here. And I hope you're learning and getting something out of this training already. Thank you. I hope we are taking a good break and gotten some fresh air. So our questions are back up as a way of wrap up. And at this juncture, I would like to hand over back again to Tinebeb to sort of take us or guide us through how we're going to do this discussion. Of course, on the side of the facilitators, there are a couple of us present that will come in. But the idea is for each team or person to share their experiences with the general plenary, and then if there are any questions, you can always put up your hand and make use of the functions where if you put up your hand, we'll be able to unmute you, and so you can be able to make your submission. So over to you, Tinebeb.
Thank you so much, Henry. During the beginning of the presentations, we have listed 3 main questions. Here, I also present here what are the state of wetland in your country and the major causes of degradation, and what initiatives are being put in place, and what's your recommendation. I would like to ask first a volunteer for one per country. At least you could give 3 minutes for each country to explain orally for these 3 main topics. I would like Henry to unmute the participant who raised hands to share the idea. Thank you very much. I could see Caroline is raising hands. Caroline, I'm sorry for not pronouncing correctly.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
This is Carol from Makerere University. The current state of the wetlands in Uganda As far as the brief 2020 September, land coverage stood at 8.4, as low as that of with seasonal wetlands contributing at around 7. So the wetlands are deeply being degraded, with Mbale taking the lead, because by 2019, 99% of the wetlands were already degraded. Hello?
Yes, we are listening.
Yeah. So the government has gone ahead to approve like so many cancellation of the land titles to see that the swamps and all the wetlands are being maybe used in the right way, but still the percentage is just increasing. So we need to do a lot about the wetlands, because even the contribution to the is constantly reducing. By 2019, it was just 25 million dollars. Yet in the early of the century, it was quite higher than that. Yet the wetlands contribute a lot to the people. So many people earn a living from there. So if nothing is not done by 2040, it's expected that all the wetlands will be gone in Uganda. So we need to do a lot. And by last year, the ministry was reviewing the national wetland policy to see, and they went ahead to develop a wetland resource bill to address all the challenges. But still, corruption is going away with it. So my recommendation is that maybe all these policies should go back to the local government, because if the central government has really failed to help out on the policies, maybe we should allocate back to the community. Then they should do away with the central government, which is a bit hard, but at least at the local government, corruption can be dealt with than the central. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for a very good outline in terms of Uganda wetland degradation. And all of the information that you have said is recorded and then will be also well noted. And we appreciate the information that you have given us. The second one, I would like to give another opportunity for other country. I know that Carol also has raised hands, but since you're also from Uganda, I would like other countries to give an opportunity. I've seen another one from Edith. I'm not anyone from Rwanda, from Ethiopia, Somalia. I would appreciate to give a chance to speak a country-wise degradation and recommendations. Eric Tamba.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, we can hear you.
So
Please go ahead.
I'm from
Okay,
Tanzania.
Eric, just a second.
And
we have given rights to, if you put up your hand like Eric has done, you'll be able to unmute once the facilitator, moderator, picks on your name. So just go ahead to unmute yourself and then submit. So, sorry, Eric, you can continue.
Okay, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I'm from Tanzania, as I said. And actually, in Tanzania, we are surrounded with these wetlands in every corner, from northern part to the southern part, where we can find Lake Nyasa. So actually, according to NEMC and WWF and IUCN, the current state of Tanzanian wetland covers almost 7%. And you can see that Tanzania takes a large share of Lake Victoria, that is almost 47%. And at the western part, we have 45% of Lake Tanganyika and 20% of Lake Nyasa. So the freshwater inside our country covers almost 40,000 hectares, and that's from the report of NAMC. And also we include man-made waterlands that covers almost 85,000 hectares. So the major initiatives that are being put in place right now, just to mention a few, is the government insists very much in conserving the wetlands inside the national parks, for instance, the Ngorongoro crater. And most of the cause of this degradation link back to the government system itself. So we have problems, for instance, institutional weakness. Thus, there is lack of coordination between the sectors. And also, we can see different users of these lands have different attributes on concerning the use of the wetland itself. So we have conflicts between farmers and pastoralists. Those who keep livestock. So that's the major challenge in our country. So my recommendation to this is that we are developing various tools, for instance, this GIS and other observation skills. We could use this as a country or institution or non-government organization to link up to get real information so that we can have the proper way to manage our wetlands here in the country and elsewhere. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your brief notes on the condition of Tanzania. We appreciate also your tools to share within the group now that we have a platform that's opened in Telegram as well as in Google Classroom. These are the main idea that we are currently thinking, to share ideas, to experience for each country to another country. So it is a platform that will enable us to share our approach, any application of Earth observation data for wetlands. I would like also to invite other countries in this successive 6 minutes to briefly go country-wise wetland degradation, and then some of the recommendations that you listed out. I've seen Garikia from Zambia.
All right. Please. Thank you very much. Like has been said, my name is Garikai. Just to highlight some of the major causes of degradation to our wetlands in Zambia. There are issues of increased population growth. There's also over obstruction of water, and indeed land use changes. Because the population is growing, there's demand for more land, and most of these areas that are generally vacant are wetlands. So you find that people are going in these areas to build houses, industries, and things like that. But of course, this comes at a price, because you find that now just very little amount of rain, we have floods because of the degradation of these wetlands, which are very, very important to the country and indeed to the ecosystem at large. In terms of the initiatives that have been put in place to protect them, I think there has been the development of the development and adoption of the National Wetland Policy. I think that's was done to try to help protect the wetlands. And I must say that we have 8 wetlands of national importance in the country. But I think some of the challenges that need to be overcome are that we do not know the actual extent of some of these very important wetlands. And so I think in terms of recommendation, I would think that it would be very important to properly map them out, because when they are known in terms of their spatial extent, it becomes very easy to be able to protect them. But if we know that there are 8 and they are in these provinces, but we do not know exactly where they end or where they start, you find that even protection becomes very difficult. And therefore, it may be helpful to also institute an interdisciplinary team that can sit down to try to deal with this issue. That's my submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karikia, for taking us through the Zambia experience. We really appreciate it. We are so grateful for your insights as well. For the interest of time, we remain with 9 more minutes to finish the webinar. I would like to give a chance for 2 more people, but please make sure that to make it brief in terms of time. So, Renly, I do not know where you are from. If you are different from Zambia and Tanzania and Uganda, please go ahead. I could see you are the first one that appears in my screen.
Okay, hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Where?
I'm called Lenny Patrick. I'm from Rwanda. Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are hearing you. Please continue.
Yes, our country, we have a large number of wetland, and we have a big problem of degradation. So, but the problem we have is lack of stakeholders. So I'd like to share our experience on wetland, but at the time it is not good. It is so too small.
Yeah, it's true. But we have opened a forum on the Telegram. Please kindly share your experience in the Telegram page as well as the Google Classroom page that we have opened specifically for this webinar. I would also appreciate
I'd like to say that for wetland, like for farmers.
Oh,
hello?
Sorry. It was discontinued. So I was talking. Please go ahead. So I think we lost the connections. So I will give another person a chance. Kevin is the first one that I could see. Kevin, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentations. Perspective of South Africa, like many of the speakers before me, South Africa has also lost, at least according to the report, more than half of its wetlands. In particular, I'm based in Cape Town, so that's mostly where my experience is from with wetlands. And a study showed again that less than 1% of the seasonal wetlands in South Africa are protected. Now, within Cape Town, you get mostly wetlands in the lower plains because it's a very low-lying city next to the ocean. But you also get seeps on the mountains. So you get a different type of wetland from the seeps on the mountainside. And they have different problems, for each of them. So on the lower lying areas, the biggest problem is flooding from urban growth. So in the end, many of the seasonal wetlands have changed to small lakes, whereas around the mountains, it's the growth of alien vegetation like trees, like pine trees that consume a lot of water, as well as the harvesting of water that has lowered the aquifer for the seeps. So that's really the problems we have had. And then in terms of what's being done, the municipalities manage the wetlands. So there's ongoing removal of alien trees and the use of photography to monitor what is happening at the city level.
Kevin, we are not hearing you. I think it's also again disconnected, but he gave us a very good short brief of South African experience in terms of wetland degradation. He took us all the ecosystems and also the application of photogrammetry in wetland. I would appreciate if all of you, including the speakers of each country, to list all the degradation of wetland, anything that you'd like to discuss among the groups, to post it in a Telegram group, as well as in a Google Classroom discussion pointers. And we, with an interest of time, we would like to close the panel discussions, and we remain only with 4 more minutes to go. And we would like to give an opportunity for question and answers. I know that it's very small time for the questions that you could be raised, but since there will be a discussion or forums that's going to be opened in Google Classroom as well as in Telegram. Kindly post any of your concerns, any of your questions in the page that is dedicated for this training. And any burning questions that you could raise, please raise it right now in the remaining 4 more minutes, and we will try to address it. I see iPad without the name. If you are raising a question, please, I would like to give you a chance.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. My name is Amir from Sudan.
Okay.
I need to give the idea about the last slide of
Okay.
wetland. Yeah. Can you show the slide?
Okay.
Yeah.
The last slide. This one.
Yeah, the last slide. No, the last slide of the statement of the degradations of the wetland and the
Yes.
the recommendations and yeah.
Oh, for
And the initiative. Yeah. We need to give you the examples of the wetlands that is here and the issue that facing the wetlands here. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't get your question clearly. You want me to post the last slide of which presentation? The first, the second, or the
He's referring to
I
the
need to give
panel
you the
slide.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, this one.
Okay. Over to you.
Okay. So here in Sudan, we have the wetlands, a lot of wetlands, but we call them the catchment area. As the INGO Liber International Non-Governmental Organizations. According to my experience within the INGO here in Sudan, exactly we are facing a lot of challenges regarding the wetlands. So most of them, I think, is related to the issue or the conflict that is between the pastoralists and farmers. You know, because of the dispute that is came from the catchment. You know, and here the wetland have the populations or residents that live around the the, the upper stream and downstream area of all wetlands. So during the rain season, the water is charging around this area, and the pastoralists came with livestock and causes some problems to the farmer to the pastoralists to the farmers, and the conflict is rising. Even the government, I think, initiative or start with many solution, but unfortunately, still the issue is present. And also the or NGO, the international organizations also, yeah, they practice a lot of initiative for solutions or for last solutions about the the land the land right and the land ownership and so on. But still also we face a lot of problems regarding the wetland here, and also we as we community, I think there is a lot of committees formed for the protection of the crops and the wetland, and they set a local law that is protect the wetland, but unfortunately the people here are not respect the law. Also but
Amer,
I don't I don't know I don't
I
need
will.
to talk more about the recommendations. I see that
It's okay. Because of our time, please make it so brief because we are running out of time. It's already
time
5.
is exactly. But
And please.
we know that is the recommendations here maybe becomes with the setup of the law that is that can protect the wetland, and also we can say that there must be general mapping for all the wetland, as my colleagues before say here. That is also important. Yes, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amer. I really appreciate your feedbacks and what you have gone through in the experience of Sudan. I would also appreciate if you could post these discussions also in the forums that's open dedicated for this webinar. For the interest time, I would not go through the question and answers, but since we will have time tomorrow for the remaining 3 days of training, we could come back to post and answer all of your questions and concerns in successive days. With this, can anyone please mute your mics? Yes, thank you very much. So tomorrow, our training will be starting at 2 p.m. Please make sure that you be on time, and as today, to follow us through all the interesting topics that my colleague will be presenting on wetland vulnerability assessment. And as a reminder, I would like to encourage you to post all of your questions in the Telegram page as well as Google Classroom page. I appreciate all of your attentions. I would like to say thank you very much. And over to you, Henry, for the closing remarks. I know we are running out of time. I'm sorry for that. 3 minutes are already over.
Thank you, Tinebeb, and thanks to all the participants and for all their contributions. We have so far had a good day one, and I think the success of any engagement and the training can also already be underscored by how the first day goes. And I believe it's been a great success. We have had up to, I think we hit the mark of 300 participants that logged in day one, and we're believing that more and more will join. As already indicated, we'll continue tomorrow, 2 to 5 p.m. We asking you, those who have not yet connected to the Google Classroom, please go there. We are going to post materials for today, the presentations that were done today, and any other reading materials. So please keep checking. If you have not joined the chat, please do join the group so that some of these we can already exchange. I think that's it really for today. I would like to invite the team leader, the lead facilitator, Dr. Jane, to just give us really parting shots if there are any. And if Dr. Gidud is also around, feel free, and then we call it a day. Otherwise, my appreciation from the team here, and we look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow, same time and same place. The Zoom link address is still valid for the 4 days. I thank you all.
Henry, can you please post the Telegram page and the Google Classroom link in the chat so that everyone can be able to join?